Andrew McEvoy. Before we get going, well done on your appointment at Fairfax, and welcome to the media.
Oh, thanks, Alan. No, I'm looking forward to it. I probably came from the media many years ago, but have enjoyed 20 great years in tourism and now returning to where it all began.
Well, congratulations, and I hope it goes well for you.
Thanks very much.
Now, on to tourism matters. Before you obviously finish up at Tourism Australia, is the high Australian dollar still hurting tourism?
It's not really, and it's not the be-all and end-all. I guess the dollar has impacted on the number of Australians going out. We've felt very confident as people. Our dollar's bought well, and so I think it's exacerbated outbound travel. But we've had 3.5 years straight growth of inbound travel growing in numbers, nights and dollars. So the dollar has not been the be-all and end-all. The emerged middle class of Asia is really, that genie's out of the bottle and it's driving it despite the dollar. So we've defied gravity. We've also had growth out of the markets like the USA, a rebound in Europe, and the UK is coming back. So the dollar's not all it's cracked up to be. Airfares have never been more competitive, but I do think the dollar has exacerbated outbound travel by Australians.
I wonder whether the inbound traffic might have been greater had the dollar not been as high as it was.
Yeah, quite possibly. Also, I think that as the dollar comes down and maybe settles to historic averages, if that happens, we might see that more value is left in the Australian economy. People leave their home with £2,000 or 2,000 US or a certain amount of RMB, and if it can obviously go further if the dollar is less in Australia. So I do think that if the dollar comes down, it'll be good for Australian tourism in the value that's left behind.
And are we seeing a change in the type of tourist?
We've certainly seen a big change in geography. We were very reliant for many years, as you know, on traditional long-haul Western markets, the UK, Europe, the Americas. And I guess when I started in this role in 2010, we really encouraged the industry to gear up for Asia, and not just China, but India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and all these countries have really, really grown for Australia. Singapore's really grown off a mature base. So there's been a real shift from west to east. New markets like China tend to grow group travellers, but they're fast becoming independent travellers. So we're seeing a younger Asian audience coming to Australia and really, really enjoying the experience.
Are they interested in different things in Australia to the traditional travellers that have come to this country?
We do a lot of research. In our top 15 markets, our unsurpassed natural beauty is still the number one reason in all markets, Western or Eastern, why people come. What we find out of Asia, it's a bit of a generalisation though, that their motivation is that unsurpassed natural beauty, our native wildlife, our cosmopolitan cities, the fresh air, the clear skies, that's their motivation. But the Asian travellers probably aren't getting as deeply into our country. Again, a generalisation, but they're a bit more urban. So motivated by that unsurpassed natural beauty, but tend behaviourally to stick around the cities a bit more.
So the growth markets really now are China and other parts of Asia.
Look, we've seen now that in the region in which we live, if you include New Zealand, the Asia Pacific region, that probably a decade ago, about 45% of all our visitors came from this region. Well, that's 60% of all of our international arrivals come from the region in which we live. And by that I mean including New Zealand, Asia, North Asia being, China, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, particularly Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and also India. So the region in which we live, a one-stop, non-stop flight, same time zone, but a very different country to the ones they live in, is really delivering a lot of business for Australia at the moment.
And do you think Australian tourism providers are adapting sufficiently to the changes that you're seeing in the makeup of tourists coming in?
We're getting there. There's still a lot of work to do. I do think our sector, because of the volatility over the decades, is pretty quick at getting where new business is coming. So I think many of the tourism people are gearing up, particularly for Asia travellers and particularly for China travellers. So we've got running a program nationally called China Ready, and a lot of the industry are getting things like getting their information translated into Mandarin, getting Mandarin speaking guides front of house, Chinese television in the rooms, congee on the breakfast menu. So we're getting there. The big thing with any visitor from any country is cultural understanding. And I think that's sort of the work we need to do next, to give them what they want in a great country like Australia.
So let's run through the things that they need to do. It's congee for breakfast, Mandarin speakers, what else?
I think just some cultural understanding, slippers by the bed, fruit platters, very simple things. It's the little things that matter. And even if you haven't got perfect Mandarin for the Chinese traveller, just the attempt is worthwhile. Having some of your website translated into Chinese, some of your information brochure translated into Chinese. So those things, we all feel that, don't we? Whenever we travel, the more familiar we feel with the surrounds, the better we feel about the destination we're in. And Australia needs to do that, particularly for China.
And what about infrastructure in Australia, airports and transport generally? I mean, is that up to scratch?
It is. I mean, there's the whole debate about Sydney's second airport, and, you know, Sydney is a major gateway for Australia. I think it used to be 62% of all arrivals came through Sydney. It's less than that now. It's about 45%. Destinations like Melbourne without a curfew, Brisbane, Perth, even Adelaide are really growing. And that's a good thing for Australia. They're spreading the joy a bit. But we do need to do something about Sydney over the next 20 years, and that's the live debate. Look, I think physical infrastructure in terms of getting people around is pretty good. There's a lot of major new developments in capital cities too. We're probably short on beds over the next 7 or 8 years. We need more hotels being built, but a lot of people are building great convention spaces, Sydney being a live example.
Where are the hotels needed?
So we probably need about 20,000 new beds across capital city Australia. Sydney would be the lion's share, probably about 20% of those. Melbourne's done better than most cities because it's built more in recent times. Brisbane's got a real need, as does Perth. Adelaide's getting there. The one that's really sort of heaving at the moment is Darwin, with a lot of corporate traffic, mining traffic, etc., as well as army and stuff based up there. So all capital cities need a bit. Sydney needs the most.
And what sort of hotel rooms are required for, in particular, the Chinese traveller? Are we talking serviced apartments, straight-out hotels, high-end hotels, or what?
It's a real mix, but really a lot of people get excited and want, the shiny 5-star hotels, and they are important. They give you new news and they're sexy new additions to your tourism portfolio. But the truth is most travellers stay in good mid-range, so high quality 3 and 4 stars what's required, and it can be hotel but also serviced apartments. You've seen people like, Harry Tridgeboff and the Meriton guys, the rise and rise of serviced apartments, and they're doing very well. Great brands in Australia like Toga, Mantra, the Ridges Group, they're building, and hotels in city fringe, airports are stacking up because the mid-range is where it's really at.
What are the other things, if anything, that you're saying Australia needs to do to get the tourism sector growing to its full capacity, to the full extent possible, say by 2020?
So it is growing to its full capacity at the moment. We've had the best 3 years of growth since the Olympic year of 2000. We've had domestic growth, interestingly, as well. So as while there's been growth in outbound, Australians are also taking more domestic holidays. So as a share of wallet, the travel category in Australia is quite powerful. The next big thing we need is aviation capacity. We wrote a 2020 plan and we said we needed 54% increase in international air seats into Australia. And we've been exceeding the 5.5% per annum we've needed. We're getting about 7%, but that needs to continue. We're seeing great growth out of the Middle Eastern carriers, the Chinese carriers, our own Australian carriers are growing and forming strong alliances, and the low-cost carriers. So we think the air seats are coming. The hotel bed issue is really important. And then ultimately, as you know, it'll be a matter of labour and skills. As we rebalance the economy, tourism and hospitality will hopefully take a bigger share of Australian labour.
You mentioned domestic tourism. Now, as you say, it's still going pretty strong. And I imagine that it'll be even stronger if the dollar comes down and people don't want to travel overseas as much as they did before. Is the infrastructure, is the capacity of the industry ready for that?
I think it is. It's been the bread and butter for our industry for many years. Australians take 75 million trips in our own country, spending almost 300 million nights, and just the overnight value of that's over $50 billion. So I think we're well geared. We're a good tourism country. We're actually good at this thing, and that's why it's really positive that this new government is calling it one of the pillars of the economy and really talking it up, because I do think that our domestic tourism has meant we do this pretty well. We can always get better, but the real fast growth will come from international visitors and largely from our near neighbours in Asia.
Great to talk to you, Andrew. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alan.